Welcome to a new era. We do have a new name. We have switched over, and it is now going to be called Jay and Dave's Sports Bar. You can still find us at all the places you found us before, but kind of putting a new name on things.
Putting a new name on it, and also, I think it represents a little bit of an attitude. And I don't mean it like we're going to be in a bar fight or anything like that. We'll disagree maybe, but I just think it's going to be fun, and I actually think that logo is sweet.
Yeah.
The neon look, and I think it's really exciting that you and I have wanted to continue this podcast, and in like the last month since we did one, I can't tell you how many people have asked if we're going to be doing it. So I'm really excited that we're going to be back at it. You and I have always gotten along so great. We have a great rapport. We're softball teammates now.
We are.
It is.
Don't ask
really,
about our record.
No, please don't. It's going to be really. It's really good to be back. And with football season having started now, we have. It's a good jumping off point. We're not doing this when it's the doldrums of summer. We're doing it right when we have something to talk about.
Well, and obviously you guys know the story by now. The Boise State football team going down to Tallahassee. They went through so much in order just to play this game. They had so many built-in excuses. They used none of them, and they went and clinched one of the biggest victories in school history in down 2,500 miles away from home.
Yeah, that was. I've been covering this team, since 2007, more or less. And I think about, in terms of all the drama leading up to the game, and just the challenge of the game. Florida State went 5-7 last year. Their offense was not good.
Right.
Do you know how many 4- and 5-star guys they have on that team? You counted. They have a ton of them.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it goes back to. Boise State's got 8 4-star guys in the history of their program. Yeah. Florida State had 36 4-star guys on their active roster, and that doesn't even include the 5 5-star guys like Marvin Wilson, over 21 in the middle.
And you saw in the first half the dudes they have.
Yeah.
I mean,
Scary Terry was
Scary Terry was frightening. Blackman even was pretty sharp in that game. And so you saw what kind of guys they have. And you see why a lot of people think that they're going to obviously be back as a bowl team. Who knows if Florida State's going to win 10 games this year, but you saw it right away. And I think that Boise State overcoming that and having to go from Jacksonville to Doak Campbell, which is a tough environment to play, and it's severely against you. It's from a neutral game to a pure road game. I mean, the only 2 wins I can think of on the road like that were maybe better were Georgia and Virginia Tech.
Yeah, and I mean, that might be the list. And in those games, they had to battle a little adversity. I think Brian Harsin brought up the fact that the bus broke down on the way to the Va-Tech game from the team hotel.
So, he was on the offense's bus. The whole offense had to go on the defense's bus. So, basically, had people standing in the aisles and stuff like that.
I still feel like that pales in comparison to what this team went through in Jacksonville and Tallahassee and all that stuff, though.
Yeah. And the media, too.
And the media, yeah. Honestly, I'll say this, it went pretty smoothly for us.
All things considered.
We found out, I bought Wi-Fi when we were in the plane because I knew we were waiting on this news to hit. And I think we were probably somewhere, 20,000 feet over Louisiana. Yeah. Because we'd left Dallas maybe 45 minutes, and then we got the news that we were able to, confirm. And Harsin's meeting with the media not long after that. It's just like it was just crazy. Yeah, but before we even hit the ground, we were already running. I
can't think of any for me personally experience like that. No. I mean, for any of these road games and. I was in my hometown. I was in Minneapolis for like an hour making a connection. And
did you get some Caribou coffee?
I walked by Caribou Coffee.
Okay.
Yeah, they didn't have a Culver's in there. Whatever. But I'm walking down the jetway and I see it, and I was like, oh God. So I'm sitting there we're on the tarmac and I'm booking different flights home and different hotels and stuff like that. But the media very resilient. Football team more so. Yeah. Because also too, and I wrote about this. On theathletic.com, but
I've heard of it.
But I wrote about it, and I did mention that Harsin had shown the team that 2010 Va-Tech hype video. Yeah. Mentioned the Va-Tech thing with the bus and going to a tough place and having to come back from being behind it. There were some parallels for sure. Yeah. But the way Boise State was able to come back from 18 points down and not just play better, dominate that second half was it was truly incredible because everyone wants second half adjustments. Well, that was it right there.
I'm totally not going to sit here and tell you like we were in the press box being like, no, the Broncos got this. They're going to come back.
Sure.
But I will say this, so like their ability to run the ball. I mean, they had almost 150 yards rushing at halftime against Florida State. Their ability to run the ball and the fact that it was just outside of a 2-score game. It was a 12-point game.
Right.
You still kind of felt like they were somewhat in it. A lot had gone wrong, but you're like 12 isn't the end of the world.
Yeah.
They've shown their ability to hang physically with this team. If they can just figure it all out and put it together in the second half, then maybe they got a chance to make this interesting. And they did so much more than that. They only allowed 68 yards in the entire second half. On offense, they moved the ball almost at will. The first couple of drives were fairly stagnant, but after that, they were outstanding. And a kid that is already he's probably already becoming a cult hero here in Boise, Hank Bachmeier.
Oh,
and
I can say Eric Sachs.
Probably not. Yeah, him too.
Him too.
We'll get to him in a second. But he did so much more than you ever could have imagined out of a true freshman in his first collegiate start in a true road game, ACC opponent, not just an ACC opponent, but Florida State.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a school that's been ranked 42 straight years in the top 25. That's going to be tested this year, by the way. But they're a perennial power everybody knows their brand.
And it's funny too. People talk about, and it's a streak they're very proud of.
Yeah.
Kurt Apsey was tweeting about it, about Boise State's streak being in the top 25.
Yep.
Florida State has been ranked in the top 25 since Boise State was just kind of getting into 1A, right? Because it would have been late 70s.
Before the blue.
Right. Before the blue. There you go. Before Boise State won that national championship. So I think that all those factors, even if this isn't Florida State with Deion Sanders, this isn't Florida State with Charlie Ward or Jameis Winston, but it was a huge win, and I don't think you can.
The moment you walk into the stadium, though, you were like, okay, this is Florida State.
Oh, it was. I mean,
right.
Personally, I think for us too, and I think Harsin even mentioned it a little bit. It got people a little more excited, frankly, to be playing there.
Without a doubt.
I mean, like playing at the house that Bortles built would have been nice, but playing in Tallahassee was really cool. And you hear the chant, and the war chant, and all that stuff. It wasn't full.
No.
And that might have made a little difference.
But
I don't know.
Almost 51,000 tickets in 48 hours. That's an incredible effort, in my opinion.
Yeah, it definitely is.
And that's like very similar situation to when Boise State plays in the Mountain West Conference Championship game here.
Right.
Season tickets didn't count. Like if they could have counted season tickets, they probably would have been close.
I'm sure they have a great base.
Yeah, I bet you they would have pushed 60, almost 70.
Yeah.
But all the season ticket holders, that didn't count. So they really had to start from zero.
When I was in Jacksonville getting my rental car, guy at the rental counter has a Florida State tie.
Okay.
And he saw my license, and you're like, okay, yeah, we're here for the same thing. He goes, I lived in Jacksonville for 32 years.
Yeah.
And I've had season tickets the whole time. And I was excited that I was going to have to only drive like 15 minutes to a game for the first time.
And instead,
I thought that was funny. I was like, put it in perspective a little bit. But a lot of their fans do come. I think there was something about how they come from like 2/3 of them come from, outside of Tallahassee. So I think that part, like you're saying, that was probably
in the
part
grand
of it.
scheme of things, it's not like the longest drive in the world. It's driving from here to Twin, essentially.
Yeah, through.
I mean, I'm sure that Boise State gets a number of fans from Twin up here
probably just
every
as much civilization
Yeah,
between here and there.
I would say, yeah, there's not much. That's actually, when we got off the plane, there was a gentleman sitting in front of me, and he said that his family was actually going to evacuate from Jacksonville to Tallahassee because of the hurricane. And he was telling me that, he goes, by the way, if you're going to grab something to eat, do it before you leave Jacksonville, because there's not a lot that you're going to be able to stop at between Jacksonville and Tallahassee. The service was terrible. We actually did a live shot from the car, but
you did?
Yeah, we
That's
did.
pretty sweet.
We did. We used this GoPro actually that we're doing the podcast on right now. We turned it into a live shot, and for a portion of the drive, we were able to do a quick hit in the car, and then we lost service after that. But that was kind of a cool, memorable thing. Our team really does scramble, and they can pivot really quickly given the circumstances. Brian Holmes, Shanti Osale, and Tyson White.
I was one-man band, so.
You were. Only worrying about yourself.
Cannonball run all the way. No, I'm kidding.
super conceited guy to my left, walks into the press box. He says his can of Coke says MVP, just flaunting it like it's nothing.
It actually, yeah, it
Didn't
did.
know he was drinking it actually.
Right, exactly. I sat down and you're like, real cool, buddy, and I was like, huh?
Yeah.
But I mean, it is kind of funny because we sit there and when you look at this game, it would have been the hype would have been enough as you're implying, but it's unbelievable with Hank Bachmeier, right?
It is,
because this happens all the time. Whenever there's a quarterback competition, and especially if there's a highly touted guy coming in, Nick Patty, you remember those sorts of names. Everyone wants the true freshman to play.
Yep.
Why? Because as far as you're concerned, it's all upside. Never seen him play, so he's got to be great, right? I think a lot of people want Hank Bachmeier.
Yep.
I think Chase Cord, if Chase Cord was starting quarterback, they would have been okay.
Yeah.
But he was so highly touted. He was such a high recruit and stuff like that. And then he exceeds even probably the most high expectations.
Oh, blows it away.
So it's
Just
like,
absolutely
this
crushes it.
It's insane. This really, truly, 100% reminds me of Kellen Moore, to be honest, in 2008.
Oh, you said it.
I said it. I did say it.
Uh-oh. Here we go.
A beam of light shoots through. But when he, his first start was Idaho State, awesome. At home against Bowling Green, was really good. They didn't play much, I remember that, because they kind of had it in the bag. And then he had that road start against Oregon, and the myth was born, and people just adored that kid.
Yeah.
Well, Hank Bachmeier did that from day one.
Day one, game one, snap one.
True freshman. I mean, all that stuff is just like it's insane. And I think that, even if he doesn't throw for 400, people are still going to be crazy.
I don't know if I've ever been more eager to actually get to know a Boise State football player a little more.
Sure.
And what I mean by that is every single person that you ask about Hank, they tell you he's weird.
Yes.
Wait, what do you mean?
Yes.
He's
weird.
He's just weird.
He just
like,
is.
He just is. He kind of likes to ruffle your feathers. I mean, that's like maybe a description you'll get, but he's just weird. He's just kind of weird.
And that's one of those things as you completely understand. And for myself, when I'm like writing a feature story, you're like, oh,
I gotta get to know this guy.
Weird how?
Yeah.
Oh, he just is.
He just is. Okay, I need more than that, please.
I need more. And like at least Khalil was like, just look at his Twitter bio.
Yeah.
Where it's like,
which is funny. He says
milkshake connoisseur, and it's like a unicorn thing.
Yeah, and he loves unicorns.
There you go. Right.
I think he's got like a
skywrite
picture.
That above Boise.
Doesn't he have like a picture of himself kind of laying, like posing almost?
He
or
does
something?
or did.
Does or did. Yeah. I also saw on Instagram that somebody started a fake Hank Bachmeier account.
Oh.
Andrew Van Buren was sticking up for his quarterback, saying that the account was fake or something like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because I don't think Hank has Instagram.
I don't think he does.
He has Twitter, and he stopped using it.
Yeah, I'm mostly a Twitter guy. Every now and then I run into a Instagram.
He stopped using it in October. And actually, what's funny is I did ask him about that right before signing day, and because I know fans were concerned. It's like, hey, he hasn't been tweeting. He changed a profile picture, and he had those other big offers. So Boise State fans have kind of been burned a little bit. Yeah. Michael Wilson, Zach Wilson.
There's no news. What's going on?
Yeah. So I called Hank the day before, and he answered, and he was kind of like, what?
Yeah.
I told him that, and he was just said he used Twitter to be recruited and keep in contact with coaches and stuff like that. He committed to Boise State already in May. And then by October, he was just kind of I don't need this anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he was still getting hit up by other coaches.
Yeah.
I know he was. And I think he just kind of thought, you know what? I'm putting it away. And so we talk about maturity with him. That's another thing.
I don't know if you got the chance to kind of, well, you were down in the field. You're getting a back massage from Buster Bronco.
That's true.
Yeah, I got visual evidence of it. I'll
you did. You took a picture.
But kind of like a moment that I'll remember prior to that game. And a lot of people said, yeah, he wasn't nervous. He showed his toughness and all this stuff. I do think that I truly experienced, and this, I could be so far off, I don't know, only Hank Bachmeier would know the answer to this, and we're not talking to him for a while probably. But there was this little moment before kickoff where they found out that they were going to receive the ball. And so Hank gets over on the sideline, starts to warm up. Just maybe a couple yards out into the field, he's warming up. Chase Cord walks out there to throw with him or whatever. And C.T. Thomas stands right next to Chase Cord so that Hank can throw him the ball, and then CT would hand Chase the ball, and he would throw it back at a trainer who would hand Hank the ball. You know what okay, right? Yeah. So the quarterbacks aren't catching the ball. Well, CT was standing there, and Hank kept throwing Chase Cord the ball, and CT's like waving his hands like, throw it at me. And so I think that was maybe, and then that was also the exact same moment that one of the cooler traditions in college football that I've experienced live finally is where
Osceola on Renegade.
Osceola and Renegade, they run out there and they stab the spear into right at the 50-yard line, and that was happening at the same moment, and the stadium was a little juiced at that point in time. So I think if there were some nerves, that was the moment. It seemed like they left them pretty quick. I think that you could see on those maybe those first couple of series the game was moving pretty fast, but
because they won the toss and receive.
Yep, correct.
Which I think probably was intentional.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because usually they
get them on the field.
Get them on the field, just kind of get it out of there.
Right.
And his first completion was a third down to, of course, CT. And, I was kind of looking through the game, and I just realized, that his first pass wasn't great, if I recall. That second one, that third down was just on a dart, and then it was kind of like, you could kind of tell, like, okay, once that's out of the way, it's a third down pass in a big situation. Then I think even right off the bat, he kind of felt pretty comfortable. Even if the numbers didn't necessarily show it,
right?
There was poise.
Yeah, and he got hit a number of times. You could almost tell, like, he was, he was excited. Like, he got crushed a couple of times.
Yeah.
Like, he was, like, jumping up off his feet. And talking to Chase Satata this week, and he kind of jokingly said something like, I think that the Florida State players knew they were going against true freshmen, and so they were kind of trying to, talk a little trash to Hank, and Chase was like, he'd turn around and be like, hey, nice play, maybe showing off that kind of weird side of him where he doesn't get rattled. I don't know, but
like the Andrew Luck. You've seen the videos of him being like, nice hit, big guy.
Yeah, good job. Well, that was good. Yeah. But I thought that was kind of funny, and he starts the game, as you said. I think like he was a little better than the initial numbers suggested, but still, he was 13 of 30 with a pick to start the game. And it was at that moment, though, that things started to click. And I want to say that was about the third drive of the second quarter. And from that moment on, he went 17 of 21 for 214 and a touchdown. He was great on third down. I mean, like, Boise State needed a lot to go right for them to get back in that game.
Yeah.
In my opinion, look no further than third down is why that game changed. Hear me out. There were some big plays, but third down, he was so good on third down.
And you and I both on Monday were asking Harsin the same thing, because we both are very intelligent young men.
Duh.
But we both were asking the same thing, and I wrote about it Monday evening.
Yeah.
That he was 8 of 12 on third downs in that game.
Yep.
And his first completion was a third down. That touchdown to Khalil Shakir is a third down.
Yep.
He actually had a touchdown on a third down that got called back.
Yep. By the way, real quick, I'm going to get stay on third downs. He had 2 touchdowns called back.
He did.
And they were kind of, they were the right calls, but still, it was just like they easily could have gone the other way, where it's just like, just let them stand.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. They both were. If you were listening to Twitter, every penalty was terrible, but those were especially
terrible.
But he, on third down was so good, and I think partially too when we talk about, and that kind of plays into another one of those overarching themes from this game was Boise State being the better conditioned team and keeping Florida State's defense on the field.
Yeah.
If you can convert those third downs, you're going to keep those drives going, and you run 108 plays.
Right.
And that again played into Boise State's favor, being able to convert those.
Okay, so on that note, Boise State had this huge time of possession advantage. When it came to the amount of plays they ran, they had a huge 108 to 62 in terms of offensive plays ran. Boise State 108, Florida State 62. If you go back though and you look at those third downs, right? The extra amount of time that Boise State was able to possess the ball by converting third downs was over a full quarter, 15 minutes and 1 second by converting third downs.
Yeah.
And if you go to the flip side of that, Florida State, they were able to possess the ball an extra 1 minute and 3 seconds by converting third downs because they were terrible on third downs.
1 of 12.
1 of 12.
So they did score on a fourth down.
They did score on a fourth down. I know that is kind of you're right
still.
though. But they didn't convert the third down,
good.
which meant they had to roll the dice to go for that fourth down. So I just view that as kind of a separate deal.
Yeah.
So I think that's where Boise State was able to win this game, though. 35 extra plays by just converting those third downs. I think that was the difference. And it's because Boise State wore them down. They wore down Florida State. Those guys were gassed.
Yeah, they absolutely were. And on both sides of the ball, like on offense, They ran some quick series early because they scored quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But on the flip side of it, throughout the game, when Boise State was getting them off the field, that was giving their defense even less time to rest,
mm-hmm.
and then Boise State flipping the script as Jeff Schmedding put it.
Yeah.
Them being a little more aggressive, not like that could really bit them
mm-hmm.
because they're missing tackles. If you try to be aggressive and miss tackles, but he's talking about just being aggressive and like just attacking them. If they run a screen, go blow it up. Don't wait for it to come to you.
Yeah.
There's things like that sounds so simple. Or even he mentioned like tackling form, right?
Mm-hmm.
That they were like lunging instead of like running. You know, it's little things like that. And once they got more aggressive on defense too, they wore Florida State down. And the comedy of it all is Florida State was cramping.
Mm-hmm.
Boise State wasn't. Willie Taggart talked about it this week and then tried to walk his comments back today. But it's like, it's the funniest thing in the world.
He absolutely meant it. And honestly, why he tries to take back those comments or justify them is because that is not a good reflection on him. They live in Tallahassee, and you're not prepared for the weather.
Right, exactly.
I mean, how many people, when we tweeted out pictures of, Boise State's practicing in the indoor, and you have all these FSU fans go like, that's nothing like the heat and humidity in Tallahassee.
Yeah.
That's how they talk, by the way.
They do.
I imagine. Actually, they were very kind.
Yeah, they're very kind.
It was wonderful.
But they're like, hey, Jay, come to our tailgate. And you're like, there's a weird cadence you have there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just really honestly hilarious to me because I think a lot of their fans, the day that Boise State was doing that, by the way, was like an unusually oppressively hot day down there.
Mm-hmm.
So like, whoa, and it's like it's still 3 or 4 weeks away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At that point, so I think it was like, I don't think it's going to be as bad as they think it's going to be. And was it going to be a factor? Yeah, but it turned out to be a factor for the other team, for the home team.
Yeah.
So that's still one of those things that's going to, I'll always remember about that game.
Yeah.
Is just like going into it, Boise State tries to prepare for it.
Mm-hmm.
The Florida State fans just think it's the funniest thing. I'm like, you can't get ready for it.
Yep.
And it's their team that struggle with it.
Yeah. I want, before we get over to the defense, I do want to continue to talk a little bit more about Boise State's offense. The offensive line, it was maybe a little bit of a slow start, I'll say.
Yeah.
Offensive line coach Brad Bedell this week said that it was a good start, not like literally to the game, but overall for the season. It was a good start, but the quarterback got hit too much. They take that personally. Mm-hmm. They will fix it this week. That being said, I was still very impressed with those guys to be out there for upwards of 108 plays. And we're talking, of course, about John Ojukwu went down. He was still out there for over 80.
It's like late in third quarter he went out, right?
Right, yeah. But you have Ezra Cleveland, John Molchon, Garrett Larson, and Eric Cuvedo that were out there for a very long time. I mean, those guys played almost every single snap.
Because the only one that missed the snap was Larson, who missed one out of those other ones, right?
Yep.
Yeah, because he had to get his helmet because it got knocked off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and KHG came in. So, I mean, those guys, like, that was crazy. And then after the game, Molchon comes up and talks to the media, and he sits in the chair, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then whoever was coming next, it might have been Zach.
No, what happened was, so Curtis Weaver was in the chair before, and Molchon was like, what is going on here?
Oh, there's like a weird piece of tape.
Yeah, there's like tape or something, and I think there's probably a bunch of sweat in the seat, and then John compounded that problem.
But whoever was coming up next, I think it was Zach. I think it was Zach Hill. Zach just looks at it and goes, ugh, and he moves the chair off.
Yeah, we need to burn this thing, get rid of it.
But it was earned, and it was funny. Because I talked to Garrett Callingham yesterday about like hydrating, and he goes, water and Powerade on the plane, get on the bus, water and Powerade on the bus. Like it was just like that was drilled into them from day one.
But look at the payoff, man.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's the difference in the game. The margin for error was so slim that everything played into this, and I think that, I'll give them credit. When we were talking with Chase Atata prior to the game, he mentioned something about the Bronco way, and you're like, okay, well, let's define this. Let's get into the Bronco way a little bit. It's something that we haven't heard before, but he just talks about, I think we prepare better. He was a firm believer that they just are really thorough in their preparation. And at the time, you're kind of like, yeah, it's a good soundbite. You're going to air it. That sounds right. But in the back of your mind, you're also thinking like, kind of coach speech, we'll see. It's kind of coach speech.
Yeah.
But after the game, you're like, Chase Atata was 100% on, man. It might have been coach speak, but there was meaning behind what he was saying.
Yeah, and that was preparation. That goes for everybody. And I know they say that's a huge word with Hank Bachmeier. Robert Mahone, a guy who
there we go,
who obviously was suspended for the bowl game, comes in, and they've talked a lot about how he got ready for this opportunity.
Yeah,
he was prepared, but the preparation, like you said, has to do with everything down to like what you're drinking on the plane.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It does all matter. Though it was funny, like, didn't Curtis say, like, I felt like you've been sitting down a lot on this trip, because they're on the plane and on the bus and whatever. But
he's such a character,
but give him credit,
too.
they were so ready.
We were asking him after the game, like, the team went through so much. And you're like, what's your most memorable thing? And Curtis says, so I'm sitting on the plane, and it's me and David Moe, and there's a seat between us, and then I see Chase Satata come. He tries to sit between us, and I'm like, nah, Chase.
Like, that's what you take from it?
That's our memory.
Right.
But that's exactly what I was asking for, Curtis. I will say this, though. It gave us this opportunity to share that funny little story.
Tidbit.
Yeah, but that's not what we meant, Curtis. We were asking about the trip and, like, the experience, the adversity, all that stuff. He's a character, man. I want to, I keep kind of going over into the defensive side. But you bring up Robert Mahone. Can we talk about Robert Mahone? Because that was almost equally as unbelievable as Hank Bachmeier.
Yeah, I mean, 142, 2 TDs.
Yeah. That's more yards than he ever rushed for an entire season.
Yeah. And, like, right from that first carry, you knew, like, oh, my God.
I think so. And that was, like, I couldn't agree more with you, Dave. I was still on the field as we wrapped up our pregame show, and we were just kind of packing up, and I was getting ready to walk up to the press box, and I was like, I'm going to turn around. I just want to – first play of the season, I just want to remember it.
Yeah.
Just kicked off my 9th season covering the Broncos. I want to remember it. And – you kind of figured it was going to be a handoff, by the way.
Especially to the left side.
Yeah, but behind Molchon and Ezra. And then he bursts up the middle and gets 17, and he looks jacked up after, and you're like, well, okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and that's the thing, too, is like the last 2 seasons, they started so slow running the ball, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
that's a good point, Dave.
Other than UConn, and I will always throw UConn out.
Is such a dismissive. Like, that doesn't even matter. That was the worst team.
Yeah.
I seriously think, like, Idaho State, Brett Rippon's first game, they would have hung with that UConn team. UConn was terrible.
Oh, they're
by the way,
atrocious.
no disrespect to our Idaho State fans in the Roar.
No.
Roar.
But the last 2 seasons they've struggled real bad because in 2017 it wasn't until BYU when Madison had a 100-yard game. Robert Mahone started that game, if we all remember, because the coaches wanted to get him some more run, so they started him, and he fumbled. Boise State recovered it, and then Alexander Madison comes in, runs for 120 or something like that in that game. So, and then of course last season, and that's well documented. Other than that UConn game, how they struggled to run the ball early. So when they talk about getting off to a better start, the offensive line, the sacks, not good. The run blocking and stuff like that, major positive. The fact that they could do that off the bat, which again, they hadn't done for the last 2 seasons.
And when we get back to, looking at this thing as we move forward, I will say this. You can second guess, like, whether or not Florida State's overall product is going to be good, but Marvin Wilson is an absolute beast. That interior defensive lineman for Florida State. I am very confident saying Boise State won't face a better interior defensive lineman all year than Marvin Wilson. So, like, the fact that they did have some trouble blocking some guys initially, I think that it makes sense to me. Like, they had some elite guys up front. I mean, that's where a lot of those 4- and 5-star guys live on for Florida State, is on that offensive line.
In that 3-4, when they had the 3-4 look, all 3 were like 300-pounders.
Exactly.
So I mean, the ends were.
Those are like things like, BYU will have some size that they have up front,
always.
But man, that is such a unique look that Boise State team will have to face the rest of the season. I mean, I really don't know if they'll even have to.
Does BYU have like an 8th Kaufusi? Because they're always like
Probably, right?
6'9", 280.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think the closest comparison, which John, when I asked him about it, did say it was BYU. Closest thing.
Okay. Well, but I don't know. I just, in terms of what the production they were able to get from Robert Mahone, Andrew Van Buren, he had a couple hiccups in that game, a fumble, a false start. That definitely seemed to diminish his playing time. He actually still had as many snaps, I think maybe even one more than Helani, but Helani touched the ball almost every time he was on the field.
You can see from that guy too, and Robert Mahone told us before the Florida State game.
Yeah.
I think he said he's the more jittery of the running backs, like a jitterbug, like the speed guy. You saw it out there, obviously. But also, what was interesting too is Van Buren did catch a touchdown from Bachmeier in the second half.
Scorebook will tell you otherwise.
Got called back.
Got called back.
So he was still in.
Yep.
So he wasn't totally in the doghouse. They kept him out for a bit.
Yeah.
But even like that first third down pass, I put it in my story. You can see the GIF of it. They're rushing a guy off the edge. Van Buren moves on over and picks that guy up, and Hank hit the third down pass to CT on that first series. But Van Buren put on a good block. I think that you'll see him in a decent amount because I think among those guys, he's the best pass blocker.
I think that his size is very intriguing. He's also a reminder how impressive it is when these true freshmen can come in and play right away. Andrew Van Buren, like his weight hasn't fluctuated much since the moment he arrived on campus, but he went from 24% body fat to 12% body fat in this last year. I mean, so some of these freshmen come in and they can really transform their bodies in the year, but he was the case where they asked him to play right away. Holani, they're asking him to play right away. Holani's a little bit of a freak himself. Avery Williams is the pound-for-pound strongest guy on the team. Holani will one day take over that title. I heard somebody say he repped 225 18 times before he even stepped foot on Boise State's campus. Okay, these are kind of apples and oranges comparisons, but Leighton Vander Esch repped 225 19 times at the Combine, way longer, so it's unfair to compare it. But still, I mean, like, there's a little perspective there of just how strong George is and how developed he is for a kid his age. And
coming from Bosco. That's what kind of Lee said. Lee said he's used to it. I mean, his quarterback last year is the #1 recruit in the country this year. I like his name is DJ Uiagalelei. It's a great name.
He was on QB1.
QB1. I remember Holani getting some run in that game, and when they played Chaminade, you could hear Van Buren's name.
Van Buren. Yeah, he was like, you actually saw Van Buren 21 like for like a second in that.
I think he scored a touchdown in that game, and I remember asking him about it, and I don't.
Not much to say?
Not much to say because they didn't win.
Yeah.
But just nerding out about things, and I'm like, that's pretty cool. You were on that, right? And he's like, yeah, I guess I was on it. But yeah, I mean, props to the run game, props to the pass game.
Yeah.
I mean, those receivers, we knew they'd be ridiculous, and like I'm pretty sure we said it before.
Yes.
Khalil Shakir, really good.
Amazing.
C.T. Thomas, 100-yard game.
Super good. I mean, we've had so much to talk about. Gosh, I'm so happy this podcast is back.
And also,
because we like a lot of these discussions have been happening between ourselves. Like
it's therapeutic too because we can't always fit it on. We can't fit it on a TV spot. Can't fit it in every article.
But like for me, like I think John Hightower is really freaking good. But like it wouldn't surprise me if his numbers aren't quite as good as they were last year, just because of everything that they're trying to do on offense.
Yeah, I wouldn't be stunned.
He was fairly quiet in the season opener. He's still going to have a good year. I'm not being like John Hightower's going to have 8 catches for 100 yards this season. He's going to do way more than that.
It's hilarious because he didn't do much.
Yeah,
but he will.
He will.
That's why that's how good they are.
And that's it goes back to this. And I was actually kind of surprised. Last year, Sean Monster and A.J. Richardson combined for 190 targets themselves, right? That group behind him, if you will, the guys that are back this year, so C.T. Thomas, Khalil Shakir, help me out here, Dave. Killian Butler, Octavius Evans, John Hightower. There it is. So those 5 guys. Those 5 guys, 190 for A.J. and Sean, those 5 guys, 162 combined. So they got 190 targets or whatever, relative, to spread out amongst these guys. Also, in every year that Harson's been here, except 2014, they've had at least one receiver with 100 targets in a season. The only year they didn't was 14 when Matt Miller got hurt after 4.5 games. Yeah. He had 42 targets or whatever it was by then. So he was going to blow that out of the water. But still, Thomas Spurbeck stepped in and combined those two with well over 100. So, I mean, like somebody's going to get that volume in this offense. I think in game 1 we learned it's going to be a toss-up between Khalil Shakir and C.T. Thomas with Khalil maybe just getting the edge right now.
Yeah, we're very smart, but it wasn't a huge leap to say that. It wasn't a huge leap to say Khalil was going to be really good, but based on what we knew, what we saw, the way that they can utilize him is just a little more varied than CT.
Yeah.
CT's going to be able to catch balls all over the field.
Yeah.
Shakir's bigger. We saw him make that leaping catch in the end zone. You can hit him on screens. He can take that little jet toss and things like that.
So versatile.
He can do a lot of different things.
We saw him in the backfield a number of times last year. I recall seeing him once in the backfield against Florida State.
I think there was one.
He motioned out.
Right.
But still, like just in terms of like some of the matchups and some of the looks that you can get with Khalil on the field, I mean, he's so valuable to this team. And I'm excited we've been beating that drum, man. Like Khalil Shakir he's a dude.
There's a reason.
And he proved it game one. Career high 8 catches. That's so funny. Like some of these guys too. Like you talk about the roles that they're stepping into. Khalil had 16 catches all of last year. He had 8 versus Florida State.
Right.
170 receiving yards all of last year. He had 78 against Florida State. I mean, like he's so modest. Like when we talked to him this week, he wasn't really going to be like, yeah, I loved getting all that volume, but he's kind of has to. Right?
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. And I think that to be, and this is not a huge deal. I voted him preseason All Mountain West.
Yeah.
I did the same thing with Vander Esch.
We talked about this. So we did that. We had him over John.
Yeah. John.
We just haven't had a podcast to talk. Well, we had like one. I can't remember if we mentioned it or not.
Right.
We had to be patient and rebrand, and we got all this going now for us. We should mention we're going to be here every week.
Yeah.
We didn't get a chance to do
we
that
mention
yet.
that you're Jay and I'm Dave? No.
Yeah, that's Dave and I'm Jay.
but
we've done this before, we swear. We've just been so eager to jump back into this thing.
But yeah, I mean, I'm just always amazed at the way that there are guys that can step up and kind of that next guy where you just know he's going to be great.
Yep.
Like I mentioned before his junior year, I put Vander Esch as preseason All Mountain West. He didn't get preseason All Mountain West. But those of us that saw the team and kind of knew that wasn't like a hipster pick, and I wasn't going to email everybody else in the conference. But it was like, there's that next dude.
Yeah.
There's just that next dude, and I feel like Khalil's that guy.
Yeah, he is. So we'll see how it progresses from here. Finally getting to the other side of the ball, and there were a number of guys that made an impact in that game. But man, I remember talking with Kyle Kaniho during fall camp, and you were just drilling him on this new, kind of finding a permanent home at nickel, and we're gonna see more of him this year. And he's always been a guy that, he's kind of like a utility tool that they featured at a bunch of different spots. Now they're featuring him at one spot and using his versatility to be great at that spot. Man, he was dynamic, game-changing, brought energy, brought big plays. He's great.
4 tackles for loss,
Yeah.
more than he had all of last season.
Yep.
He had that sack where he stripped Blackman. David Moa picked it up. Moa talked about it today, and Moa's hilarious because he's like, I don't really want to talk about the past, but and mentioned that play and talked about how cool it was, his first real game back, being able to pick it up. And he said it's called country. They yell country when you got no one in front of you. He said they're yelling country, and he said he put a move on someone. He thought it was a Florida State guy, but it was Bruno DeRose, his own guy. And so obviously that was a big play. That really stopped momentum for Florida State.
It did.
But Kenio was awesome, and I know Rachel asked Jeff Schmedding a question before the Florida State game about the, how nickel fits in his defense. And I'd written about that a bit because at Eastern Washington, they ran a 4-2-5, like a true 4-2-5, and that nickel was really important. And Jeff basically said, yes. Kikala during fall camp was like, they're going to use me more. And we saw it day one.
Yeah.
And it's a great idea. It's going to be very interesting to see where they go. He's a junior now. Where they go moving forward that position. I mean, I would assume they're going to start recruiting guys to that position.
Yeah.
They haven't.
Yeah.
Kafensis was a strong side linebacker. They'll drop down, guys like Skinner or Kafari Buffalo or Tyreek Jones who are safeties.
Yeah.
I'm just interested. I'm interested to see where they go with that because that could be a really
dynamic.
Dynamic position.
It's very similar to the stud in Boise State's defense, where you just do a lot of things. You drop into coverage, you rush, you play the run, you do lots of different things.
Bump out to corner on the slot.
And it's actually, as long as we're talking about those two positions, it's funny. Like the playing time for Kikala Kaniho and Curtis Weaver have almost mirrored each other throughout their entire careers. Both played around 45% of the snaps as freshmen. Now Kikala is a true junior, Curtis redshirted, but so they're somewhat same class. But when they were freshmen, they played about 45% of the snaps. That number jumped to about 60 last year. Those two guys did not leave the field against Florida State.
Well, and I think that's probably what you want as Boise State because, they're probably the two best defenders, in my opinion.
I mean, in terms of playmaking, can change the game in a second.
In terms of that. I mean,
those are the guys. Momentum swings.
Yeah, DeAndre went out. I mean, I'd put DeAndre up there too, but but those two guys made plays. Curtis got a sack. Laughed after the game when he saw Spencer Danielson, we're outside the locker room. I was walking out, and Curtis is like, says to me, he's like, they can't double team me every play, Coach T. Because he got a sack, when they didn't. It was just kind of funny because Florida State sure as heck tried to.
Yeah. And then they finally, he actually had a number of pressures in that game. And then he finally got to James Blackman late in the fourth quarter, which was kind of more or less the nail in the coffin in that game. But that was also one of the plays where Florida State's trying to move the ball quickly, and they're putting more guys, sending more receivers onto the field, try to get more guys on there. And that was one of the plays where Curtis actually was finally one-on-one. And if you go one-on-one with Curtis, you're probably going to lose.
Yes, yep. After the game, there wasn't a great spot to put the quote, but I'm going to say it. When he said, we usually come in as underdogs, but we don't leave that way. He kind of had a quote like that. I was like, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I didn't have a great spot for it. Because I kind of ended the story because I saw Kyle Wilson out there and talked to him a little bit during the last seconds of the game. And I thought that would be a nice little thing to have my story on. But I was like, that quote keeps eating at me because I'm like, I didn't have a good use for it. But I'm like, I have to say it.
That's why I got the podcast. One thing that I appreciate about games like that, though, Boise State always says, the chip on the shoulder, we're underdogs, all that stuff. But it is matter of fact, they hardly are ever underdogs. They probably won't be an underdog the rest of the season. So when they actually are underdogs and they go do stuff like that, it's cool. Like it has a much different feel than being like, oh, we're underdogs against Marshall. No, you're actually 2 touchdown favorites almost.
I know I tweeted out, you and I talked about it up there, I think. We did. We talked about it. Their record under Brian Harsin when they're underdogs. Because during his entire run.
Like true, okay, again, not hypothetical underdogs, but
true.
Vegas says you are an underdog, you are not favored to win this game.
They were favored by a point and a half against Oklahoma State, so remember that.
Yeah.
But I think, I'm trying to remember the number. I'd written it down. It's like 5-2 straight up, like 6-1 against the spread.
Yeah.
Something like that.
And those are updated.
Yeah.
Yeah. After
I think that's what it was. That's pretty amazing.
You won't find that very many spots.
Like I know they have that, like you said, that mentality. They're usually not the underdog.
No.
But in these situations, they sometimes.
I mean, that also suggests, Dave, that their record when they're the underdog is basically their same record win percentage-wise as when they're the favorites.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah. It's pretty close. It's pretty close, I bet. But also too, I have to mention.
Mention it.
Jeff Schmedding.
Get it.
It was not a good debut.
No.
It was a pretty bad debut.
I mean,
in the first
start to the debut.
Yeah,
and people on Twitter, man, you could just feel people just pounding their keyboards,
And that's it's game one, of course.
Well, that's what.
It's.
I love passionate fans, and I will never discredit a passionate fan because you guys are supposed to be passionate, right? Like I get that, but it's at the same time just be reasonable. Andy Avalos recruited all these guys. He's been here for like a decade. He knows them. He understands
Jeff
them.
had never been here before.
Jeff, this is his first game. Like. Easy.
Yeah. Yes.
Give him a half to adjust to these guys.
Yeah. Overreaction Sunday is a very big one. And so the way that he was able to, I saw him just right after the game on the sideline, and I told him, I mentioned it to him. I was like that was a hell of a turnaround.
Yeah.
And he's like, looks at me and he goes, just needed him to calm down a little bit. It's basically all he said, and he's pretty much right.
Schmedding's got an energy to him.
He does.
And talk about a guy that's straightforward with us.
I know.
Very straightforward.
I hope he stays that way.
I hope he stays that way. Because he is here. It's not like he's given us anything crazy, but like
he's not giving away the game plan.
The way that he talks about Kekala Kaniho's performance is like he's like, oh yeah, he didn't start that game the way that you wanted that he wanted to, and you probably could have asked him that. He would have said the same thing. But he flipped a switch in a second. I mean, it was just like, stuff like that he does, and it's like, this is good TV, so thank you.
and it's good for writing because he will give you a little bit of insight. He'll like I said, when you get to ask about the nickels or you ask about a certain play in particular or a player in particular, he gives a little bit of insight.
Right.
Sometimes even tells a little bit of an anecdote, which is
amazing.
Like you're saying when they're like, oh, he's just weird. I don't. That's fine.
But give me more.
Tell me why.
Yeah.
Jeff Schmedding maybe is the guy you go to be like, can you tell me?
Can you maybe we need to ask him why Hank's weird.
Yeah,
hey,
exactly.
Jeff, can you tell us why Hank's weird? Let me tell you.
He goes, the guy
he rides a unicorn cart every day to whatever to practice.
He's got a bike that has a horn in the front.
Does he? Maybe that would be the type of weird we're looking for, right? Like when everybody says he's weird, that would put him in the weird category. That's what he chooses to ride around campus.
Do you think we can get him on here and do like milkshake tasting? Because he says he's a milkshake connoisseur. Considering we can't even interview him.
One day we hope. Gosh, that'd be.
You got a kitchen right over there.
We
just
do.
Make milkshakes with Hank.
Yeah. We hope to continue this visual element, by the way, to the podcast. If you're listening just the audio, hit up YouTube and check out the visual version of this. Or if you're watching, check out the audio version of this while you're driving in the car or whatever. But
we'll probably be, especially me, this fancily dressed probably most of the time too.
You get us how you get us, man. You get us how you get us.
If we were sitting at the Real Sports Bar, we'd probably be wearing this.
Yeah, at least we weren't drinking anything.
I'd be swearing.
Get the bleep button ready.
But I guess if we're gonna finally just hit on, if we're going through all the aspects.
Yeah.
You mentioned Eric Sachs. I mentioned Eric Sachs. You said we should talk about him.
We should.
He came out of nowhere. I mean, yes, we knew in the spring that he was coming to Boise State. He wasn't here yet. He was going to be a walk-on, so it wasn't anything that could be announced. We just knew he was coming. They've had guys come in before who just don't do anything. There's been a couple guys I can remember that came in as kickers. Like, oh, that guy played at a JC or something like that. Ends up not even playing, or not much at all.
Yeah.
And dude comes in here from a Division III school and goes 5 for 5.
He misses
Florida State.
He misses one of those kicks in the first half, and the game just feels so different.
It does, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, if he missed any of them, and hypothetically Boise State goes and it's 33-31 at the end of the game, maybe Florida State does things differently instead of being so panicked. Think, oh, if we get in field goal range, we have an Aguayo on our side. Maybe we can win it, you know.
Yeah.
And so, so Sachs was really good. There was one bad punt by Velasquez, but otherwise special teams was fine.
As you were lining this up, I kind of thought about that Velasquez punt, and that was kind of a forgotten play because at the time, I mean, Boise State was just teetering on, can we come back and do this, and we're gonna this game's over.
That probably would have factored into a story if Boise State had faltered.
Right.
I would have been like, oh, and guess what preceded it? Special teams.
Yeah. But
they also,
it was irrelevant.
And they had the kick return with with Butler and Noah on for a bit there. I was like, ugh, special teams.
Yep.
But Sachs did great. They covered kicks well. Florida State fair caught just about everything.
Yeah.
The punt they had a good return on. That dude shouldn't have fielded it. That thing was at like the 5.
Yep.
So, but props to Eric Sachs. I think I'm Too Saxy is going to become a very popular.
Where are we at on Hurricane Hank?
Drew Roberts.
Oh, okay.
Hurricane Hank, I dig it.
You don't love it. You don't. Oh,
I don't.
You're, okay.
I don't. You want to know why?
Why?
Because they're going to be playing the rest of their games far away from any Hurricanes.
Yeah, but that's how nicknames. My favorite nicknames are ones that don't make sense. Like it's like, well, how'd you get that nickname there? Backwards hat? Or, I don't know what I mean. You know what I mean? Like, that's
Evad.
Like,
my name would be Evad. That's Dave backwards.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, how'd you get that, Evad?
But no, I mean, like, I think it's fine. It's alliterative. I think it's fine. Slightly tasteless if people are like, oh, he came in and laid waste to this town. You know what I mean?
And that's what, like, we don't need to go that far.
Right.
Like some people didn't. I'm like, we don't need to go that far. Let's just, a hurricane moved this guy's first game. It didn't phase him, and he still went out and performed well.
The unicorn. I don't know. You know, I'm just kidding. I don't know.
I guess what you're saying is it's too early to settle in.
It might be too early to settle in. Did Kellen ever have a nickname? I don't remember.
They called him Kellen.
The great one, the chosen one.
Sometimes they called him Moore too.
Someone made fun of me recently when I was like, my wife mentioned it, and I was like, yeah, I talked to Kel recently, and so Kel, I'm like,
that's Keenan
Moore. Yeah, exactly. The Good Burger remake coming back soon.
Yeah.
But I mean, and also, I mean, it's a fair question too. This is actually really Diet Mountain Dew. But do you think they go undefeated? I mean, it's a question now that people are asking already. I talked about it in my mailbag today on theathletic.com.
What's up, mailman?
Yeah. But if they go undefeated.
I think the one question mark around this team, maybe two, running back and quarterback. But one threw for 400 and the other one had over 150 total yards. Nobody questioned everything that's around those guys. So if those guys continue to perform like they did, Hank doesn't need to throw for 407. But if he continues to show poise, toughness, good decision making, If he can do those things, if Robert Mahone can be as consistent as he was in the season opener, it is a legit question, Dave, because all of a sudden we looked at that schedule before the season and it's like, well, here they might slip up, or here's an opportunity maybe. But given everything that they handled and beating Florida State, like, I'd be lying if I didn't tell you like, yeah, look at the schedule, and I'm like,
yeah,
I think they can run it.
I think they can too, and
No, I don't know. Can? Yeah.
I think the ESPN FPI, I think it was like 12.8% for them to run the table, even though they'll be favored in every game.
Yeah.
Some people might look at that and be like, doesn't that mean they should be 100% or whatever? No.
Yeah, it's like parlaying a bet. Even if you get great odds, more and more you stack on top of each other, the worse your odds get.
Well, now with betting becoming more widespread, we're gonna Dave and Jay's picks of the week.
Ooh,
but the game that's supposed to be closest is at BYU, and if you look week one, you're just like, oh, they should crush BYU. No, I think BYU is gonna be better by the time October rolls around. That's a tough place.
Zach Wilson will be tough.
Tough place to play.
Yeah.
They almost beat him here last year.
Yeah.
So that one will be a challenge.
You look at that Utah game. I mean, like BYU kind of was hanging around, and they started turning the ball over, and
Utah,
then it really got out of
Utah's pretty
Utah's
good.
Utah's good. Yeah, but like they hung with Utah for quite a while, and then the game got out of hand. But
there's usually, and people have talked about it, and I think it's true.
Yeah.
Usually under Harsin, there's a bit of a clunker.
There can be.
And you don't necessarily know when it's coming.
You don't.
So that's why I think does the schedule shape up nicely?
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
I think the thing that's nice about it is that's a great point, Dave. They kind of get 2 byes this year, but the next 3 games are at home, and then they get Air Force, and Air Force. A bye actually follows Air Force, which I actually kind of like more than the bye coming before Air Force, because
I think for them,
I feel like knowing the bye is there after Air Force, that almost like narrows your focus even more. It's like, let's get through this thing, and then we can, reap the benefits and relax after it, versus we got 2 weeks to think about this thing that's been inside of our head for the last, ever since we joined the Mountain West.
And again, if honestly we're gonna talk like betting, like there was that time when Stanford was just bludgeoning people with Bryce Love and McCaffrey and guys like that. Like the week after they would play, the other teams had an atrocious record against the spread. Because they were beat up against Air Force. They're cut blocking you. They're running at you. It's off a short week because they're playing on Friday night. I think that
sore knees.
The time after would be huge, because by now they know what to expect from Air Force's offense.
Yeah.
That option hasn't killed them lately.
Yeah.
Air Force did score a good amount of points on them last year.
Yeah.
But just the true triple option, I think they've, I won't say they figured it out. They know how to handle it.
I think they're getting.
It's nothing that's shocking them anymore.
It will be Jeff Schmedding's first tackle, attempt to tackle this thing. Pun intended.
Did have a little bit of experience with that Cal Poly, right?
Okay.
In the Big Sky. Huh. So there's a little bit of it there, but
go back and look at those box scores.
Yeah.
Coming up in a couple of weeks.
Yes.
They're going to be in the all-black uniforms though, so they'll probably win by 1 million. It's not even a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looking forward to Marshall. 2 explosive offenses. The only team that's had more plays of 10 yards or more on offense in week 1 was Marshall. They had 29. They tied Boise State, so we can forget about them, right?
I don't know. Your friend CFB Stats says they have one more.
I'm looking it up.
Your friend CFB Stats. But still, Marshall is going to be a good test, I think. It reminds me similarly to Troy.
I swear They
might have updated it.
They updated that, because it said, I promise you after the game, it said 28. Okay, UCF's got 29. Sorry, UCF fans. I'll give you your credit where credit's due.
Somehow they heard you just
They
now.
were tied. They were tied, though, because I remember looking at it is UCF, Oklahoma, and Boise State, but now it has Marshall and UCF on top. So, okay, there you go.
Some guy with crossed swords in his Twitter avatar heard that just now. It's amazing.
Blow up the podcast probably, or stab me in the head with one of those swords.
Yeah. But I think Marshall similarly reminds me, maybe not quite as good, but to Troy, in that it's a school that I think a lot of people will just kind of go, oh, but don't understand actually how good they are. And Marshall won 9 games last year.
They got tradition. They got history. They have down seasons, but they have a lot of up seasons.
Yeah, I mean, like you talk about the tradition and stuff. I mean, I like Byron Leftwich, Chad Pennington.
I heard that Chad Pennington.
The God Randy Moss.
Yep, I heard that Chad Pennington is like they're Kellen Moore though. Like Chad Pennington.
Oh, I believe that.
I
totally believe that. Totally believe that.
Yeah.
He like I remember I wrote a story and I found that he like had invested in one of like the PBR bowls, you know, like the Pro Bull Rider Association, whatever. I think, yeah, but they
the herd.
The herd.
There it is.
There it is. Oh, I'm wearing a Buffalo. But Boise State and Marshall, I'll write about it, have played before. 1994, one of the most unique games that Boise State's had. It was 1AA semifinals. Pokey Allen rides the horse afterward. Boise State did not win the national championship that year, but you know, they have a little bit of a shared history, and so and also too, both schools, Boise State in '96, Marshall '97 went up to 1A, and both had really quick success. Boise State took a little longer, but Marshall right away had my dude Randy Moss from Randu.
That was a good 30 for 30.
Very good 30 for 30.
Yeah, one of my
Him and
favorites.
Jason Williams went to high school together in Rand, West Virginia.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yep. It'll be a good game. I do think, I don't know if we're giving official predictions yet. We'll line up something kind of fun here as this podcast evolves under our new name, the Sports Bar. But last I saw, 10.5, I think.
I say more.
I would take Boise State.
So would I.
Okay, with that being said, we're looking forward to the Marshall game. Pre-game show on KTV will air from 6 to 7 o'clock on Friday. We're going to take you right up till kickoff. What do you got, Dave?
TheAthletic.com doing a little story on that Boise State Marshall game from 1994. The only time that they've played. Really interesting game, to be honest. And then since then, both schools have kind of gone on to a lot of success, moving on to the next level. Together, kind of a similar ascent. Boise State a little more than Marshall, but very, very similar for those two programs.
Yeah. A shout out to Shane Woodland, who made our artwork for the Sports Bar. Good news is you won't have to wait a month or months between shows next time or episodes next time. We'll be back again, same time, kind of same place, hopefully next week, and same time, hopefully same place next week.
And just, as long as no one is terrified by our faces, we're very excited about doing this too.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll get this up and running on YouTube, and you guys get the visual along with the audio. So with that being said, we appreciate you watching and listening. We'll see you next week here on Jay and Dave Sports Bar.